Chapters 19 through 24 of the book of Ezekiel, from the Holy Bible in Modern English, translated by Ferrar Fenton. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Mark Penfold. Chapter 19. And you, raise a lament over the princes of Israel, and say, What was your mother? A lioness couched among lions. Among the young lions she nourished her whelps, and one of her cubs became the young lion, and learnt to tear plunder, devouring men. But the nations heard of him and caught in their pit, and they brought in a cage to the land of Mitzrayim. When she saw as she watched that her darling was gone, she selected a whelp and made him the young lion. And he marched in the midst of the lions a king, and learnt to tear plunder, devouring men. Guessed the weak ones, and ruined, and ravaged the cities, and all the land rang with the sound of his roars. Then the nations came on him around from their forts, and flung on him their net, and secured in their pit, and put in a cage, and brought to Babel's king, who confined in a den, that he should not resound his voice for the future on Israel's hills. Your mother, like you, was a vigorous vine plant. Her fruit and her branches were thick from the streams, and strong stalks came from her, as scepters for princes. Her height touched the clouds, and showed thick leaves above. But they plucked from the ground, and flung out in a fury, and her fruit is dried up by a wind from the east. Her strong shoots are withered, and fire consumed them. She now sits in a desert, a dry, thirsty ground, and fire from her stalk eats the single bunch left her. Nor comes a strong shoot for a scepter for rule. Oh, weep for her then, and let this be her dirge. Chapter 20.
It happened in the 7th year, on the 5th of the 10th month, some of the old men of Israel came to inquire of the ever-living, and sat before me. Then the message of the ever-living came to me to say,
Son of Adam, speak to these old men of Israel, and say to them, Thus asks the mighty Lord, Have you come to inquire of me? By my life I will not be inquired of by you, the mighty Lord says. Judge them, son of Adam. Teach them the depravities of their fathers, and tell them, Thus says the mighty Lord. At the time I chose Israel, and lifted up my hand to the race of the house of Jacob, and disclosed myself to them in the country of the Mitzrayim, and lifted up my hand to them, and said, I am your ever-living God. At that time, when I raised my hand to them, to bring them from the land of the Mitzrayim to the country I intended for them, flowing with milk and honey, it is the most splendid of all countries, I said to each of them, Fling away the pollutions from your eyes, and do not corrupt yourselves with the idols of the Mitzrayim. I am your ever-living God. But they rebelled against me, and were not desirous to listen to me. Every one of them did not fling away the pollutions of his eyes, nor did they abandon the idols of the Mitzrayim. Therefore I threatened to pour out my indignation upon them, to assuage my anger at them in the land of the Mitzrayim. However, I acted because of my name, so as not to degrade it in the sight of the heathen amongst whom they were, in whose sight I discovered myself to them, and brought them out from the land of Mizar. Thus I brought them out of the country of the Mitzrayim, and conducted them to the desert, and gave them the institutions and decrees that I taught, which the man who practices will live by them. I also gave them my Sabbaths, to be a memorial between them and me, that I am the ever-living, their sanctuary. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the desert. They did not follow my institutions, and rejected the decrees that I had made for them, and violated my Sabbaths greatly. Therefore I threatened to pour out my wrath upon them, to destroy them in the desert. However, I worked for my name, so that it might not be degraded in the sight of the heathen in whose sight I had brought them out. Yet I lifted up my hand to them in the desert, declaring I would not bring them to the country I had given them, flowing with milk and honey, the most splendid of all lands, because they rejected my decrees and did not walk in my institutions, and profaned my Sabbaths, for they went after the idols of their hearts. However, my eye refrained from destroying, and I did not make an end of them in the desert. But I said to their children in the desert, do not walk after the ideas of your fathers, nor follow their decisions, nor corrupt yourselves with their idols. I am your ever-living God. Walk according to my institutions, and preserve my decrees, and practice them, and sanctify my Sabbaths, and let them be a memorial between me and you, to teach you that I am your ever-living God. But the children also rebelled against me. They did not walk by my institutions, and did not preserve my decrees and practice them, which if a man practices, he will live by them. They profaned my Sabbaths, therefore I threatened to pour my indignation upon them in the desert. However, I withdrew my hand and acted for my name, so that it might not be degraded in the sight of the heathen, in whose presence I had brought them out. Yet I raised my hand to them in the desert, to scatter them among the nations, and to disperse them in the countries, because they had not practiced my decrees, and had rejected my institutions, and profaned my Sabbaths, and their eyes followed the idols of their fathers. And I consequently appointed them imperfect institutions, and decrees that could not give life to them. Thus I made them polluted in the gifts to themselves, in coming upon every opener of the womb, so that I might fix them, and that they might learn that I am the ever-living. Therefore, Son of man, speak to the house of Israel, and tell them, thus says the mighty Lord, your fathers always outraged me thus, with resolute perversity. However, I brought them to the country I had raised my hand to give them, and they admired all its lofty hills and all its shady woods, and sacrificed their sacrifices there, and presented their offensive gifts, and placed there sweet perfume, and drank their drinks. But I asked them, what are these columns that you go to, and whose name is called at the column to this day? Consequently, say this to the house of Israel, thus the mighty Lord asks, will you corrupt yourselves in the same way as your ancestors, and fornicate as filthily as them, and offer your foul gifts to this day, in passing your children through the fire to all your idols? Why should I answer you, house of Israel? By my life, says the mighty Lord, I will not be consulted by you. Yet what arises in your mind shall not be affected, when you say, we will become like the heathen, like the families of the countries, and worship wood and stone. By my life, says the mighty Lord, if I will not reign over you with a strong hand and directing arm, and with pouring indignation, and bring you out from the peoples, and collect you from the countries where I have scattered you with a strong hand and directing arm and pouring indignation, and bring you to the desert of the peoples, and judge you there face to face, as I judged your ancestors in the desert of the land of the Mitzrayim, so I will judge you, says the mighty Lord, and pass you under the rod, and bring you to the bonds of the treaty. But I will expel from you the rebels and revolters against me. I will bring them from the country where they were lodged, but they shall not enter the land of Israel. Then you will learn that I am the ever-living. But you of the house of Israel, go every one and serve his idols, and afterwards, if you will not obey me, yet do not again outrage my holy name with your gifts and your idolatries. For in my holy hill and the high mountain of Israel, says the mighty Lord, all the house of Israel will serve me perfectly in the lands of their country, and I will there demand your wavings and firstfruits and gifts with all your consecrations. I will delight in your perfumes when I bring you out from the peoples, and collect from the countries where I had scattered you, and I will make my name respected through you in the sight of the heathen. Then you will learn that I am the ever-living, when I have brought you to the soil of Israel, the land that I raised my hand to give to your ancestors, and you will then reflect upon your courses and all your ways by which you corrupted yourselves, and be loathsome in your own eyes, because of all the vices you have practiced. You will also recognize that I, the ever-living, work for you because of my name, not because of your vicious ways and rotten courses, house of Israel, says the ever-living. Chapter 21.
The command of the Lord came to me again to say,
Son of Adam, set your face towards Teman, and set it to the south wind, and preach against the forest of the south country, and say to the forest of the south, Listen to the message of the ever-living. Thus says the mighty Lord, I will light a fire in you, and devour all your green trees and every withered tree. It will burn unquenchably, and everything will be scorched before it, from south to north. Then every person will learn that I, the ever-living, have kindled it unquenchably.
But I replied, Ah, ever-living, do they not say he talks in enigmas? Again the command of the ever-living came to me to say,
Son of Adam, set your face towards Jerusalem, and let it trip to the sanctuaries, and preach against the soil of Israel, and say to the soil of Israel, Thus says the Lord, I am against you, and will draw my sword from its sheath, and cut off from you the righteous and the wicked. Then when I have cut off from you the righteous and the wicked, my sword shall proceed against every person from the south to the north, when every person will learn that I, the ever-living, having drawn my sword from its sheath, will never return it. Consequently you, son of Adam, sigh with shaking waste and bitterness, sigh in their sight. And then if they say to you, For what do you sigh? You must reply, At the report that has come. So let every heart sink, and all hands weaken, and every spirit faint, and all knees tremble like water. For the event will come to pass, says the mighty Lord.
The command of the ever-living again came to me to say,
Son of Adam, proclaim and say, Thus says the ever-living. Exclaim, A sword, sharp and bright. It is sharpened for slaughter, that it may be destructive lightning, or the gleaming scepter of my son that melts every tree. It is endowed with brilliancy to be held in his hand. It is a sharp sword. It is bright. It is given to the hand of slaughter. Shriek and howl, son of Adam, for it will come to my people. It will reach all the princes of Israel. My people will be terrified by that sword. Therefore slap your thigh because of the trial. And what if even the gleaming scepter cannot endure it? The mighty Lord asks. But you, son of Adam, preach, strike hand on hand, and triplicate the sword twice. The murderous sword, the mighty murderous sword that penetrates to them. For terror of heart and the furious attacks on all their gates, I will fix the threatening sword point. I will make it like lightning flashing to slaughter. Rush to the right hand, turn to the left. Come, fix your face. Yet I also will clap my hands and satisfy my indignation. I, the ever-living, have said it.
The command of the ever-living came again to me to say,
And now, son of Adam, appoint for yourself 2 ways. Sketch for yourself 2 ways for the entrance of the sword of the king of Babel. Let them both start from the same district, and when depicting it, depict a city at the end of the roads. You must depict the route of the sword to Rabbath of the Beni Ammon, and to Judah to besiege Jerusalem. Then depict the king of Babel at the head of the 2 ways, deciding which is the road to take, by the shaking of arrows, asking of the teraphim, looking at the liver. Let the decision come on his right hand for Jerusalem, to erect batteries, to break her side, to slaughter on the hills, to shout with roarings, to fix batteries against her gates, to heap up an embankment, to construct ramparts. Yet it will be a silly tale in the sight of those who swore the oaths. Yet he remembers their fault and will seize it. Therefore, thus says the mighty Lord, because you have called your fault to remembrance by publishing your sins and displaying your offenses in all your proceedings, because you have reminded about yourselves, you will be caught. But for you, wicked, wounded prince of Israel, whose day has come with the time of this last fault, the mighty Lord declares it, I will remove your turban and take off your crown. He shall not be himself. I will throw down the high and lift up the low. Alas, 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 I will overthrow this city. It shall never be revived until its rightful owner comes, when I will give it to him. For yourself, son of Adam, proclaim and say, Thus says the mighty Lord to the Beni-Ammon about their disgrace, and exclaim, A sword, a naked sword to slaughter, sharpened to devour by lightning. In spite of your false visions, your lying divinations hung on your necks, when your day comes at the end of your period of sin, you poor deadly wounded wretch, put it in its sheath. I will punish you in the place where you were created. In your native land, I will punish you. I will pour out my anger upon you. I will breathe upon you in the fire of my wrath. I will give you into the power of ruffians, skillful in destruction. You shall be devoured by fire. Your blood be on your land. You shall not be remembered, for I, the ever-living, declare it. Chapter 22.
The command of the ever-living came again to me to ask,
Will you now, son of Adam, judge the bloody city and teach her all her depravities? And will you say, Thus says the mighty Lord, City, you shed blood in your breast to hasten on your destiny, and you make yourselves idols to defile yourself. You shall perish in the blood that you have shed, and be defiled by the idols you have made, for you have contracted your days and brought years upon yourself. Therefore I will make you a scorn to the heathen and a derision in all countries. You shall be named Many Revolutioned. Both the near and the distant shall deride you. Look at your nobles, Israel. Each sheds blood as far as his power goes. In you they despise both father and mother. They oppress the stranger in you. In you they wrong the fatherless and the widow. You have degraded my sanctuary and profaned my Sabbaths. In you men accuse falsely to shed blood, and in you they eat sacrifices to the hills. In you they plan treachery. In you a father's shame is disclosed. In you they corrupt women bound by a vow, and each commits depravity with his neighbor's wife. And everyone devises to defile his daughter-in-law, and everyone has debauched his sister, his father's daughter in you. In you bribes are taken to shed blood. You take usury and exorbitant interest, and plunder your neighbor by extortion, and have forgotten me, says the mighty Lord. Therefore, see, I have struck my hands against the plundering you have done, and at the bloodshed which exists amongst you. How can your heart stand or your hands be strong at the time when I shall deal with you? I, the ever-living, have said and will do it, that I would scatter you amongst the heathen and disperse you in the countries and eradicate your corruptions from you and make you vile to yourself in the sight of the heathen. Then you will learn that I am the ever-living.
The message of the ever-living again came to me to ask,
Son of Adam, are the house of Israel dross to me? They are all copper and tin and iron and lead in a furnace. They are the refuse of silver. Therefore, thus the mighty Lord said, Because you are all dross, I will pile you into the well of Jerusalem, as silver and copper and iron and lead and tin are piled into the well of a furnace, to blow the fire over to melt them. Thus I will pile you in my indignation and fury, and melt you. I will melt you thus, and blow on you with my fiery anger, and dissolve you in the well. Like silver is melted in the well of the furnace, so you shall be melted in that well, and learn that I, the ever-living, pour out my wrath upon you.
Again the command of the ever-living came to me to say,
Son of Adam, say to her, It is a land not purified, nor rained upon in the lowering day. Her preachers conspire in her like a roaring lion desiring to tear his prey. They devour wealth, they seize riches, they have increased the destitute among you. Her priests have violated my laws and outraged my sanctuary. They do not distinguish between the consecrated and the common, and do not separate between the pure and the unclean, and have veiled their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am despised among them. Her nobles are like wolves in her breast, tearing prey and pouring out blood and destroying lives for the sake of plunder. And her preachers impel them by silly false visions and lying divinations, exclaiming, "Thus says the mighty Lord," when the Lord has not spoken. They have oppressed and robbed the people of the country, and grieved the poor and distressed, and wronged the stranger, refusing justice. And I have sought for a man among them to mend the fence, and stand in the gap before me for the sake of the country, that I might not destroy it, but I found none. So I will pour out my anger upon them. In the fire of my wrath I will destroy them. On their own heads I have laid their conduct, said the mighty Lord. Chapter 23.
Again the message of the ever-living came to me to say,
Son of Adam, there were two women, daughters of the same mother, and they prostituted themselves in Mizar in their girlhood. Their breasts were pressed there, and their virgin bosoms used, and their names were Allah and Alibah. They became my property, however, and bore sons and daughters, and the name of the daughter of Allah was Shomeron, and of Alibah's Jerusalem. But Allah prostituted after she became mine, and doted on her paramours, on Ashur, her neighbors, who dress in blue, governors and rulers, all of them handsome young fellows, horsemen riding on horses, and gave her fornication to them. They were all the finest men of Ashur, and she doted upon them, and corrupted herself with all their idols. She did not, however, abandon her prostitutions with the Mitzrayim, who lay with her in her youth, and who used her virgin breasts, and poured their whoredom upon her. So I gave her up into the power of her paramours of Ashur, whom she doted on. They stripped her naked, they took her sons and daughters, and murdered them with the sword. And she became a reproach to their women, who executed justice upon her. And her sister Alibah saw it. She, however, doted worse than her, and prostituted herself worse than her sister. She also doted on the lads of Ashur, her neighboring governors and rulers, who were gorgeously dressed, horsemen riding on horses, all of them handsome young fellows. But I saw that she had corrupted herself, that both had gone the same way. She, however, increased her profligacy, and saw men painted on tablets, portraits of the Kasdim painted in red, their waists belted with girdles, with tasseled turbans on their heads, all of them gentlemen to look at, the lads of Babel, Kasdim by their native land. And she doted on them at the sight of her eyes, and sent messengers to them to the Kasdim. So the lads of Babel came to her bed of love, and corrupted her by their whoredoms. And when she was defiled by them, her desire revolted from them. Then she confessed her prostitutions, and disclosed her shame. But my soul revolted from her, as my soul had revolted from her sister. She, however, increased her prostitutions, remembering the period of her youth when she whored in the land of the Mitzrayim, and doted on the Philistim, whose bodies are like the bodies of asses, and their lust like the lust of horses. Thus you revived the idea of your youth, to work your love amongst the Mitzrayim, as though your breasts were young. Therefore, Alibah, the mighty Lord says this: I will inflame the paramours from whom your lust is alienated against you, and bring them from around to assail you, the lads of Babel and all the Kasdim, to punish and curse and brand you with all the lads of Ashur, handsome young fellows, nobles and governors, all of them gentlemen with titles, riders of horses, who will come upon you with shield and chariot at a rush, and with a crowd of nations armed with weapon and shield and helmet, and set themselves around you, and fix their faces for vengeance, and punish you with their own punishments. For I will show my jealousy against you. So they shall deal with you in snorting fury, and cut off your nose, and after that fell you with the sword. They will seize your sons and daughters, and after that consume you in the fire. I will thus make your vices to cease, and your whoredom from the land of the Mitzrayim, and you will not lift up your eyes to them, nor remember the Mitzrayim again. For thus says the mighty Lord: I will give you to the power of those you hate, whom your lust revolts from. And they shall deal with you in their hate, and seize all your earnings, and abandon you stripped and naked, and expose the shame of your prostitution and vices and whoredoms. This shall be done to you because of your whoring with the heathen with whom you corrupted yourself for their idols. You went the way of your sister, so I will pass her cup to your hand. Thus says the mighty Lord, you shall drink out of your sister's cup. You shall be mocked and insulted, ridiculed and laughed at beyond endurance. You shall be filled with drunkenness and anguish from the cup of ruin and desolation, the cup of your sister Shomeron. Yes, you shall drink and suck it, and chew the dregs, and tear your breasts. For I have said so, the mighty Lord declares. Therefore, thus the mighty Lord declares, because you have forgotten me and flung me behind your back, you shall bear your vices and fornications.
Then the Lord asked me,
Son of Adam, will you judge Allah and Alibah, and remind them of their depravities? For adultery and murder are in their hands, and they have committed adultery to their idols, and their children which they bore to me, they have passed them round to be eaten. They have also done this to me. They have defiled my sanctuary at the same time, and profaned my Sabbaths. For they have murdered their children to the idols, and on the same day come to my sanctuary to defile it. Nay, they have even done it in my house. And in spite of all that, you have sent for men to come from a distance, to whom you have sent a messenger, and they came. Then you bathed, painted your eyes, and decked yourself with jewels for them, and sat on a splendid couch, with a table spread before it, and my oil and perfumes upon it. And the sound of luxury was with her, and with the mob of men, men from the east, drunkards from the desert, on whose hands she put jewels, and beautiful turbans on their heads. Then I remarked, will they commit adultery with the old woman? Will they fornicate with a worn-out prostitute? And they went to her as they go to a woman who is a whore. That is how they went to Allah and Alibah, the profligate wives. Righteous men, however, will punish them with the punishments of adulteresses, and with the punishments of murderesses, for adultery and murder are on their hands. For thus said the mighty Lord, I will bring upon them a crowd, and deliver them to be hustled about and plundered. Then the mob will shower stones at them, and cut up with their swords, kill their sons and daughters, and consume their houses with fire. I will thus expel their vices from the country, and warn all women not to practice their sins. They will in this way lay your vices upon you, and you shall bear the sins of your idolatry, and learn that I am the ever-living. Chapter 24.
The command of the ever-living again came to me in the 9th year, on the 10th of the 10th month, to say,
Son of Adam, write the name of this day, for upon this day's date the king of Babel arrived at Jerusalem. So compose a parable to the rebellious family, and say to them, Thus says the mighty Lord, set on the pot, set it on, and pour water into it. Cut up for it every good cut, the leg and the shoulder, fill it with the best bones. Take a fat sheep, and also pile the bones with it. Boil it well, and stew the bones in it. For thus says the mighty Lord, woe to the murderer's city, whose scum is in her, and whose scum cannot get out from her. Bring it out bit by bit, let no lump fall into her. For her blood is in her, she poured it on the dry rock. She did not pour it on the earth to cover it with dust. She brought indignation upon her crime. I exposed her blood upon the dry rock without concealment. Therefore, thus the mighty Lord says, woe to the city of murderers, for I will pile on the fire, heap on wood, make the fire flame, stew the flesh and season it. But let the bones be burnt, and let it stand empty on the hot coals, so that it may be hot and burn the brass, until the foul scum in it is completely destroyed. She has boiled her scum well, but it has not come out of her. Her scum increases. The fire increases it from your foul vices. Although I cleansed you, you would not be clean from your filth. You will never be clean until I have satiated my indignation upon you. What I, the ever-living, have threatened will come, and I will accomplish it. I shall neither shrink, spare, nor pity. I shall punish you according to your ways and conduct, says the mighty Lord.
The command of the ever-living came again to me to say,
Son of Adam, I intend to take the desire of your eyes from you suddenly, and you must neither grieve nor weep, nor allow your tears to flow. Groan in silence, make no moaning for the dead. Arrange your turban on you, and put your shoes on your feet, and cover not your lips, and eat no bread for your wife.
So I conversed with people in the morning, and my wife died in the evening. But I did the next morning as the ever-living commanded me. Then the people asked me,
Will you inform us what this that you are doing means for us?
When I replied to them, the command of the ever-living came to me, saying, Proclaim to the house of Israel, Thus says the mighty Lord, I will defile my sanctuary, the pride, strength, and desire of your eyes, and the darling of your life, and your sons and daughters left, so you will fall by the sword. But they will make you do as I have done. You will not be allowed to cover your lips, nor to eat the bread of men, but be forced to dress your heads and show your feet, nor may you mourn or weep, but waste away in your sufferings and moan each to his companion. And Ezekiel has become a sign to you that all he has done you will have to do. Then you will learn that I am the mighty Lord. So now, son of Adam, in the day I take from them their confidence, their joy, their delight, the desire of their eyes, and the object of their life, their sons and daughters, in that day will not the fugitives come to you to report it to your ears? At that time open your mouth to the refugees, for you can then speak to them and be no more dumb as while you are assigned to them, when they will learn that I am the ever-living.
The end of chapters 19 through 24. Recording by Mark Penfold.